This is a Power 98.7 podcast. Now we're talking. Subscribe to Power 98.7 podcasts in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. There's more on power987.co.za.
So yeah, these are exciting times. So we're in the last stretch of the Power Zone, and it's always lovely to host Nong brothers, this being Neo and Lebo. They're here in studio with us. They are property investors and founders of organization Nong Wealth. They've been doing the most within this particular space, and they are our property ninjas. So when you look at how then we always more or less go back to them to refer. If I'm confused as well, I'll always go back to the conversations that we have had on the show with them, just to basically remind myself of what was said there. And this morning we also roped them into the conversation so we can get a sense of how does one prepare themselves to go into this particular property space. They are property investors, so this morning we'll look at opportunities within the property market as well, the right season for property purchasing opportunities. When is it the right season? And they told me that it's a property that they've sold. Maybe this is the right time to go into this particular space, but they'll confirm it with us. We'll also just really look at whether waiting would be a good option for you, considering where you find yourself within this space, and really the thinking behind the investing in property. Is it a viable one? Is it for all? So this morning we try by all means to position you if you were considering going into this space, as we look at opportunities within the property market. So you're welcome to engage with us. So we're on 0861 987 000. We're also there by X. We go by at PowerFM 987 at Katlego Lerodi _. You're welcome to start the day with us together in that particular sense. Neo, Lebo, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Katlego, and to all the listeners. Really excited to be here.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I've been waiting for this.
It's always lovely to have you guys on. And as I said, we're going to learn around this particular space. And one then tends to ask themselves, is there ever a season whereby you can say that, it's a booming time for property? It will be a viable time for you to invest in this space at this point in time, or it's a case by case, day by day, season by season, issue by issue, that maybe one may find themselves, let's say Katsoga and then Kiwina Lotto. So I can actually say, hey, I'm going for that property, that one, and the other. So that's not a season. It's just a kipopile, you know what I mean? Yeah. So is there ever like that opportunity or time where we can say that this is a conducive time for you to go into this space?
Yeah, for us, man, I really appreciated the article that we're reading whereby it said cautious optimism.
Yeah.
So then when we're referring to cautious optimism, it's more of due diligence. Mm-hmm. And when we're saying due diligence, it's very important that we really understand when are we going into the market. So I truly believe that we should always be cautious, not because it's about to become elections whereby interest rates might go down. And then what happens if they go up immediately after? So does this mean now we start selling them because we bought it just because interest rates were going to decrease?
Level?
So now, based on what Neo was saying, I think from my perspective, it's more about what's your strategy, right? And now a lot of people are saying that they don't want to invest in property right now because of the high interest rate.
Yeah.
But the main reason why they're not investing is because they don't have the knowledge behind buying the right deals. I mean, Neo and I do it every day. This is our daily bread. This is how we actually get money. So now it won't be possible for us to say that we are pausing our business because the interest rates are too high. So it's just about, okay, now that interest rates have went high, how do you manipulate or how do you change your strategy in order for it to consider what's going on right now in the market? So for me, it's more about, okay, interest rates have went up. How do I change? What's my game plan right now?
Are there always those purchasing opportunities that you would say they exist all the time within this space, because it's a moving space altogether, and you guys are saying you're in this 365, so do you find that there are always available purchasing opportunities, or we find these opportunities because people find themselves economically squeezed right now, then it would be an advantage or an opportunity for others, whilst then others are more or less going through the most?
There are always opportunities, but we need to really search deep. Like for us, it takes us about 4 months to find that ideal property. So, and at that time, we're searching on average 500 properties a day. So that tells you that if you are looking for an opportunity, you really need to dig deep. It's not that first property that you're going to see that is going to make investment sense.
Do you find that people then would want to hold back? Do you find that people looking at where they find themselves as you go about the strategy, you would find that because of the economy is not booming right now, we see a lot of people holding back, being cautious around their movements, and really then in any way aligning themselves with issues of interest rates and getting familiar with what the environment is presented with in a way that they don't find themselves compromised.
Yes. So we were reading this article. I just forgot what was the title of the article, but essentially what they were saying is that people are not afraid of high interest rates. The only problem is that when the market is unstable. So if every 4 months the interest rates keep going up, then that's when people are more likely to hold back in terms of spending their money. But now, since that the market has actually been stable for the past, let's say the past 3 to 6 months, the market has been at 11.75%. People have now started warming up to actually purchasing properties. And with the article that we were reading, they were saying that interest rates might actually go down. So people are more likely to actually be buying when interest rates are actually stable. But now the problem becomes when it's changing on a 3 months basis. You find out 3 months later they say that it's going to go up at 0.25%. That's when people start getting afraid or shaky to go into the property market.
So we're basically in uncertain times in terms of where we find ourselves right now. Am I right to say that there's a lot of considerations because of the uncertain times that we find ourselves in right now? And then one would even throw it to the elections to say, how do they come through to help in this particular space? Do we see then everyone warming up to the fact that we need to win you as a voter, as an electorate, and we'll go all out to ensure that we create an environment that is conducive for you to believe that there's something that we are doing, we've got your back, not knowing that maybe a couple of months after the elections, it might be a flipped situation of some sort. So the uncertainty part about it and where we find ourselves election wise, do they tend to influence or have an impact or bearing on what is happening within this space?
Yes, Katlo. But at the same time, as we did mention earlier on, man, you don't want to be that person whereby you bought it because it did go down, and then as soon as they go up again, now you're considering selling. So that means every time before elections we're buying properties, after the elections we're selling properties. We shouldn't go about it that way.
Do we see this having an impact on the selling price, the purchasing price, and everything else in between, where maybe we're in an election year, or the interest rates, or this inflation that has to be considered here? Do all of these then influence the figure that is put there when the property is on offer?
Yeah, I mean, right now when you're looking at everything, I guess most of the time when it's close to elections, you hear people saying, let's do this before elections because that's when the government is actually going to be taking us more serious. You even hear estate agents saying that people need to buy properties because elections are around the corner. But now you ask yourself that if you're going to be signing on an offer to purchase right now and taking out a bond, you're in this deal with the bank for the next 20 years. Now, if things do change, let's say that things do, the system has actually balanced throughout looking at the interest rate. Now, after the elections, interest rates go up. What's going to happen to you? Because now you can't then go back to the bank and say that the estate agent said that I needed to buy it. Hence, we're saying that you need to always be cautious before you sign on that dotted line, because you will be with that property for the next 20 years. If you default, they're going to come after you. It's not the elections.
Okay, on the selling price, can I just give the scenario that we're in, right?
Yeah.
selling price is determined by the supply and demand within that area. So our situation, what happened to us is that our property didn't have a pool. We closed the pool because it was going to cost us about 70,000, right? And then when we were shooting video and content about this, people are like, no, it's going to increase the value. But here's what happened: we saw another property in that area that was selling for 600,000, whereas ours sold for 650, and ours sold before that property. So again, it's supply and demand of the area, because ours was newly renovated but didn't have the pool, whereas the other one did have the pool but not newly renovated. So understanding supply and demand plays a huge role when it comes to supply and demand, when it comes to price.
That's very important. Let me open it up. Are we on the lines? The lines are open. Let's talk on 0861 987 000. I have Neo and Lebo. They're here in studio with us. So if you have a question around property, if you're contemplating, if you're confused around what is happening within this space, if the elections as well are influencing you otherwise, and politicians are on your neck, and property agents, let's more or less put the guys to the test. There on 0861 987 000. Thereby X, we also go by at Power FM 987 at Katlego Lugodi _ the hashtag is hashtag Power Zone. So as we look at you guys talking about the money and the supply and demand situation, does this particular space or the uncertain times that we find ourselves in have a bearing as well on lending from the banks? Do we see them also taking into consideration the environment and the space that we find ourselves in as you approach them to say, hey, I need you to lend me some money, I want to get a bond and the likes? The uncertainty, the times, the economy, inflation and everything else in between, do those actually tend to count?
Yes. So when we're looking at the bank, something that we really need to consider, of which we really preach, myself and Neo, is that always make sure that your credit score is on point. I personally, my credit score comes first. So if I'm going to have a situation whereby I didn't pay for even Edgar's account, I know that I'm putting my property investing business on the line, because now if my credit score does go down, it ultimately means that I'm going to be getting a higher interest rate. Now the question is that if I'm getting a higher interest rate, when the bank looks at my application, will I be able to afford that property? Now if I can't afford that property, then that ultimately means that the bank is going to reject me. So the better your credit score, the better your monthly repayments become. Now, looking at affordability, also the second point that I would also like to add on. A lot of people don't understand affordability. So my thing is that I want a property, I want to buy a property right now. So I don't do a pre-qualification. So pre-qualification is basically me going to the bank and asking them that how much do I qualify for, only to find out that I've been signing on these offer to purchases. However, the banks keep on rejecting. Now, if I do my due diligence in terms of why does the bank actually reject me, only to find out that in the bank's eyes, I won't be able to afford this property. So what I would say is that people need to make sure that their credit score is always on check. And then the second thing is that if you are actually going to be buying a property, do a pre-qualification and then only go to the property market and check which property would suit you the best.
And I guess also, it's about the value, right, of the property and what you would want to go to get out of that various property or particular property. In that sense, do we see you guys as sellers now having to also go the extra mile to put your business out there, to try by all means to woo the buyers as much as you can? Like you've got your work cut out for yourselves because of these interest rates and everything else that is happening in between. Do we find you having to more or less put in more work now, more than ever, to put yourselves out there?
Yes. So when we're looking at the property that we recently just sold, right? It feels good to say that. the property that we recently sold, looking at that market, most of the properties in that area were dated. So you're looking at the kitchen, it didn't look nice. But now our property was the one that actually looked nice. So that actually gives you a better chance of actually selling your property.
Do we also then see the space of auctioning as well? Just finding or seeing a lot of people then vying to go into that space because of the economic situations that we find ourselves in. You do want a property, but you don't have as much of, resource or buying power, and you don't want to maybe go through the banks, and you reckon the best way to go about it would be going into an auction space and trying by all means to get the best deal there. Do we see that as somewhat of a consideration for some people that are looking for property?
Yes, but we need to be careful about something. There's also private auctions whereby the house can be sold at the market value. So some people don't understand the difference between a private auction and an auction whereby somebody's distressed. So sometimes someone can sell it through a private auction and only to find out that it will be selling at market value.
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, it's all about knowing the value of the property.
That's it.
So when you go to an auction, I would encourage a lot of people to just go to an auction and just observe what goes on. The professionals, you'll see them coming in with a paper, which is a Lightstone report, which tells you how much that property is actually worth. And now you have beginners that only come there and just start bidding, and they don't understand the value of that property. So you find someone actually buying the property over market value. Now the value of the property is 700,000, but you were bidding and you bought it at 750,000. Now you're looking at how much you need to pay the auctioneer. You're looking at the commission costs. Now adding all of those, you find out that you actually paid way more than you were supposed to do. So I would say that if you were to go through an auction, if you wanted to buy through an auction, understand what's the value of the property and understand that at which price are you actually stopping at. Also, go to the property and view the property, because what a lot of people miss out is that there might be someone living in the property and they don't want to leave the property. Now you have to deal with the eviction, because now the auctioneer is out of the game if you have actually bought the property.
Yeah, so there's a lot to consider if you are vying for all of these options. So you guys have sold that property, and you've had a little bit of challenges as well. There is the property where there was a break-in, right?
Yes.
And those are the things that you would have to consider if you're going into investing, if you're going into maybe starting a business in this particular space. So those minor setbacks that you need to consider as well. But also, if you are one person that is buying, do you tend to find people then going for issues of security, to say we need to ensure that you guys guarantee us that there is like proper and adequate security here, we won't be compromised? The next thing, you guys have sold us the property, 2 days later get the back-to-back break-ins, and we're dealing with affidavits and opening statements here. So those there are somewhat of realities that people go through as well.
Yes, 100%, man. And the thing again is that we need to be really, really careful, because we wanted to install electrical fence, right? And then Leo was like, but what if the next person doesn't really care about it? So now you spend for my 20,000, and then the next person was like, I'm changing the whole wall, man. So we need, as investors, we really need to be cautious when it comes to such.
Yeah. So what lies ahead? You've sold this property. Do we see you guys now going into the space and looking for more properties, or this is just your day to day? Like you are there every day looking for opportunities, and really, what lies ahead where Nong Wealth is concerned?
Okay, so right now we are looking at buying a property right now. So the thing about us is that we document the whole journey. So from when it starts until when it ends. So we document the whole journey and post it on YouTube. And then what we're also doing is that we're also hosting our workshops, whereby we're actually telling everybody about our experiences. We're bringing on our team so that you also understand or hear it from someone else, especially from attorneys and your accountants and the likes, man.
Nice. It's always lovely having you guys in studio. I'm looking at the time. It's like 1 minute past 3. I'm like, guys, it's like we're starting this conversation all over again. So it's always really, really amazing to have you guys on, especially learning about property and the likes. I'm sure there's someone that has been helped. You've positioned someone this morning where this space is concerned, but also maybe give us a sense of where we find you guys, where we check your work, where we follow this documenting of the process of starting the property, flipping it, and just more or less turning it into magic. How do we follow you guys?
So on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, and also the one. Yeah, you can find us at Nongwealth on all of them, sir.
Guys, everything of the best. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to a Power 98.7 podcast. For more podcasts, visit power987.co.za or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.